Okay, today is July 2nd, 2017 in TGK, South Carolina. I am Joey Smith, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing George Jacobs. He's a veteran. He was born on May 9th, 1936, and also present in this interview are Noah Whitworth, Nick Leon, and Ben Klish. We are part of Troop 219 for the Boy Scouts of America. What war did you serve in, and what was the branch of your service?
I actually did not serve in a war. I went in shortly after the Korean conflict. Then armistice had been signed, and shortly thereafter I actually signed up for the Navy. And after the armistice was signed, the Navy was backing off a little bit on their manpower, and so there was a waiting list for people to go into the Navy. Mm-hmm. The reason I chose the Navy was, a good part of my life I grew up on the sea, the ocean, and that thing is, I'm a man of the sea. I want to be there. And, but this was about August of 1953, and filled out all the paperwork and all that, and waiting. And waiting. And finally, come Christmas come, then the 1st of January, and I was kind of tired of waiting. And I had some buddies I was going in with. There was 4 of us. We were all going in together. And he says, let's try the Marines. And we went and we signed up for the Marine Corps. And they were taking people. Now at the time, with Korea going over, you remember at that time they had a draft. And essentially everybody, able-bodied person, did go into the service at some point or another. Some early, some late. For me it was early, and but we knew it was, it was in our future, and it was nice to have a choice. And somehow I says, the Marine Corps fits us, and we all agreed. We signed up, and here we are. And does that answer your question?
It does. What rank were you when you got out?
Sergeant.
Where did you serve?
Where did I serve? I served mostly, at least 75% of the time in Camp Geiger, which is a part of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. This is, Camp Geiger was where they did the advanced infantry training, and also they had some groups of people that were stationed there. And I was stationed there with a what we call radio relay company. And so we were there, except for when we were, let's say, training. And during the training, what our job was is to provide telephone communication from the field to other field operations, or from ship to shore, from one place or another, or as I used to say, when we were on ship providing telephone conversation, we were setting it up so that the captain could call his wife. And indeed he could, from our phone. But essentially ours was communication, radio, telephone communication, and what we call facsimile communication. And I never saw the result of the facsimile. I just had the equipment that took the messages and transmitted them to another place. And so, in the course of doing this, I served aboard some Navy ships. I think the longest time was aboard the USS Pocono, which was a flagship, but most of the time I was on it, it was in port or going on very short trips. And this was in preparation for field exercise. So I was on that about three months until, I don't know why I went on the ship so early, but I was there. And I was off Vieques, Puerto Rico, and I was on ship in Vieques, Puerto Rico, and I also served at the air station in Puerto Rico, Roosevelt Roads air station's closed now, I believe. So that's about the only places where I was actively working. When aboard ship, we went on weekends to different islands. We essentially hit every island in the Caribbean.
So, why did you join?
That is a question that I don't have a solid answer for. I was, and I don't tell people this very often, you know, I'm telling the world, I guess, but I was a high school dropout. Okay, I dropped out of high school after 2 years. And I was working actually as a custodian, and I set up pins in a bowling alley, and I had some animals like cows and goats and things like that. And I was looking at it and says, well, this isn't really what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I knew that I needed to go in the military. I knew that I was going sooner or later. I went in young, my brother was drafted, and he went in old. So that's the way it turned out. So it seemed like a good thing, good and right thing to do at the time. He says, young and tough, and ready for whatever comes.
Okay. Tell me about your boot camp experience.
Boot camp. I'll tell you from the start how it developed. I got on a train with my buddies and a bunch of other people in Boston, Massachusetts. We got on this train 8 p.m. maybe at night, 24th of January 1954, and we got on there, and it was a Pullman sleeper, and we had this conductor who was, you know, taking care of us really good, and with nice comfortable bunks. We were in luxury, and they took up a collection the next morning to give the porter some money for his good service. But then in New York City, they changed us to a regular coach train, and we spent a good part of the day traveling in this train. It was pretty good, comfortable. And then we got to Richmond, and they changed us into a train that had wooden seats. The windows were all open. It was warm in the south, and that particular day, and the windows up on the train, wooden seats, an old rickety, uncomfortable transportation mode. And I says, conditions seem to be deteriorating. Things are going downhill. And I don't know whether this was part of the plan or whether it just is something that just happened. I kind of think that was part of the plan. And finally the train stopped, I guess about midnight. It might have been a little later. And there were some people around the train and watching us getting off and kind of like laughing at us. And I asked this young man, where are we? What is this place? He says, you're in Yamhill, South Carolina, and you're going to be sorry. Okay, so I know where Yamhill is. And So we got on a bus, we got to the gate, and a Marine, big, burly Marine, bigger than that guy, gets on the bus and says, "It happened again. Somebody tried to leave the island. This time they didn't make it. The sharks or some other thing got them." And, okay. So, we then were trucked to barracks. And we got upstairs, maybe we can get some sleep. Not this night. You go up there, and they say stand at attention. Well, I'll tell you, young recruits don't know how to stand at attention for hours, because they get all stiff, and then everything starts to hurt. And I remember an assistant drill instructor. I remember he was at PFC, and there was a gentleman who was in the group that was in those barracks, and this poor soul had been in the Air Force for 4 years. This poor soul was going to be a corporal when he got out of boot camp. Well, this assistant drill instructor zeroed in on him and let him know that he was not to his liking, and didn't think it was right that this person should be promoted to corporal the day he got out of boot camp. And so that was pretty much the first night. The next morning, like we said, we stood at attention until the next morning, about 5:30. And then we got the duck walk to the, you know what duck walk is, right? We got the duck walk to the mess hall, and had ourselves a fine breakfast, and immediately went from there and gave up our possessions. And I mean gave up our possessions. We gave up our clothes, we gave up everything, and put a tag on them and sent them back home. Okay? Then we went through a physical and got issued clothes and whatever. That was the first day. I'm proud of the first day. From there on in, it was a piece of cake. Indeed, we had to learn, how to dismantle a rifle, put it back together, without even looking at it. That's what I feel. We had to put the thing together. We had to do some book learning. We had to learn the rules and regulations and everything going on. And we had to do things like shoot rifles, shoot .45s, throw hand grenades. We spent a lot of time on the parade ground just marching. We did a lot of duck walking. And one of the hardest things about boot camp is being out on the parade field and having the sand fleas chewing on you, because you are not allowed to harm sand fleas, nor were you allowed to prevent them from eating. So you had to stand there, and there were lots and lots of sand fleas. If you should harm a sand flea, the punishment was severe. And some of the things I remember, back in those days, most people smoked. Okay, they didn't do drugs, they smoked. And in boot camp, they allowed you to smoke, but you smoked by the numbers. Okay, you lit your cigarette, and then when they said 1, you take it out, and then you go and you put it down. And 1, you bring it up. 2, you bring it to your lips. 3, you inhale. 4, you exhale and put it back where it was. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Those that didn't smoke got to do chores. You know, wash the floor or something like that, or wash the windows, or bang your head against a wall, whatever. But they had something they had to do. So most people, rather than do the chores, chose to smoke. And we did, when we were done, we tear the cigarette and roll the paper up into a little ball. So it was kind of like this. They didn't have filters in those days. And if you got caught smoking, I'm remembering 2 things that happened. One person had to smoke a whole pack of cigarettes with a pail over his head, bucket. He had to smoke it. Another one had to eat the cigarettes. Very severe, make you very sick, and make you disinclined to repeat that. Out in the field, out with tents, they had a place where we could take showers, and every so often, just to toughen you up a little bit, they would wake you up at 3 a.m. and have you take a cold shower. Now remind you, this was like February, and even in South Carolina, it gets a little cool in February, in the middle of the night, and those showers were not pleasant. We did, and one thing that happened to me during boot camp is my mama, she says I would be wanting to get the hometown news. So she got me a subscription to the Attleboro Sun, which was the local newspaper. And it was published 6 days a week. And I wasn't expecting this, but mail call, Jacobs! I go up, get my mail, and what my mail is, it's a newspaper. Here it is in the gut. So that was, I never got to read the newspapers. And I would write letters home. I would write letters home saying, please stop the paper. Please, no more newspapers. Please. And I did this all the time I was in boot camp. She never stopped. Some days I get 2. You know, I did this a day and then I get 2. Well, then I got a double punishment for my newspapers. And when I got out of boot camp, I said to my mama, I says, it's okay now, the subscription stopped. I says, okay, I'd like to get the newspaper. And she says, no, you're not going to get the newspaper. You weren't appreciative of it when I was sending it to you, so I'm surely not going to give it to you now. And so I didn't got the newspaper ever again. No.
Okay. So how did you get through all of that?
Just if you get something's tough for you, you just suck it up. Like if you're doing push-ups, or they tell you go halfway down and stay there, or put your feet up on the rack so you're facing down doing your push-up. You just do it. It's there are people that didn't do it. There are people who got medical or other discharges from boot camp because they could not, they could not stand up to that punishment. But remember, we're trying to make Marines here, not meek little wimps, right? So the meek little wimps did know the people that just didn't have the physical strength. All the persons didn't have the brain power. Okay, weren't intelligent enough, and we had, those people. They weren't. Today, you're required to have a high school diploma before any branch will take you. But then, you were warm-bodied and could fight. get in, but then if your intelligence was such that you couldn't master what you needed to master, they sent you out, or if you physically couldn't stand up to it. And so, I don't know what percentage, didn't make it, but I would say it would be at least probably 20%.
Where were you deployed after boot camp?
I went to Camp Lejeune, Camp Geiger, and learned about radio telephone communications. And that was my home base for the entire time that I was in. I tried to leave there a couple of times. I volunteered for Mediterranean cruise, and they didn't take me. I volunteered for jump school. They didn't take me. I volunteered for cold weather training. They didn't take me. And so I stayed, and I learned all about radios and electronics and radio repair and transmission, and learned to be a leader. I got people reporting to me. Yeah.
What were some of your most memorable experiences when you were serving?
I think I've already told you about some memorable experiences. I would tell you, I was in the Dominican Republic on a weekend, and we was on ship. I was on ship at that time, and we went ashore, and we were in this beer hall or club or whatever. It had an adobe wall around it. The wall was probably 8 feet high. And I was sitting there drinking a beer, and got conked over the head with a beer bottle that came back from the other side. So somebody from our side was throwing bottles over. These were quart bottles. Was throwing bottles over the adobe wall, and somebody on the other side was throwing them back. And I got conked with them. And so I was a bloody mess. You don't get to be a bloody mess with the stuff all over you. But the people that were running the joint were very much, I didn't have to pay for beer or anything anymore. They put sugar on my head. So that was kind of memorable. And one time was on an LST with landing ship tank. Okay, and these things have the door in the front where if they can pull in the shore close enough, they drop down and the vehicles drive off. Usually they can't do that. But they have amphibious vehicles that from out there. But this ship had armored vehicles in its hold, and they were all chained up there. And we hit a tropical storm. It might have been a hurricane for all I know. All that I can tell you about this ride on this LST was that we were in a storm, and most of the people on the ship got very sick. They closed the mess hall. Nobody, couldn't get anything to eat because they couldn't keep anything steady enough. And it was a memorable ride. And one thing, up on deck, you had to hang on, or else you were going. But 1 second, you were looking up at the water, up there. The next minute, you were looking down into this crevice, way down. And we found a couple of things happened. We found out later that this ship, came within 5 degrees of capsizing. So that was kind of, we probably was happy we didn't know it was 5 degrees capsizing. And also the packing in one of the screws let go, and the part of the ship got flooded. And the part of the ship that got flooded was where all the food was. So that was kind of memorable.
Were you ever awarded medals or citations?
Only medals or anything that I got was for shooting, and I had what they call the United Nations Medal and Good Conduct Medal. If the ship I'd been on had gone, across the ocean, I would have gotten some other medals. Pretty much they give medals for if you go someplace. I didn't go any place but the Caribbean islands and Puerto Rico, so.
How'd you stay in touch with your family?
Pretty much by letter. In those days, you didn't have the ease of communication you have today. And you could make a telephone call, but you had to call collect, and you had to go down to the company office and make the telephone call. And the charges were very high, so essentially you didn't call. Okay, if you called, it would have to be an emergency, so it was by letter was the way you kept in contact. And when you were on leave or weekend passes, you could sometimes legally or illegally go home.
What was the food like where you were?
Well, what I didn't tell you about some of the work that I did, one year in Puerto Rico, I was vacating Puerto Rico, I had gone down, we had to take turns doing things, so I took turn cooking, and I decided to stay there for the rest of the term. So I was a cook, striker, they call them cook striker, means a would-be cook. And I was supposedly going to apply to be a cook when I got back. They would have never let me because of my qualifications. They were going to let me be a cook. So the food was not great then, but I can tell you this. One time coming through the chow line, we had cream of wheat. And Southern boys coming through looked at cream of wheat, they says, "Oh, good, grits." And no, not grits. But they thought, many of them thought, insisted it was grits. And they put their butter on it, and salt and pepper, and they ate their cream of wheat. Okay, so the food was, if you were on station, whether it's chow hall, whether you got the cooks got the food coming in, the food was generally excellent. We have no complaints. On Sunday you could get your eggs custom made, whatever they cook them for you, and you get them just like you are in a restaurant, buffet. You go up and cooks them. But the rest of the time it was kind of a fixed menu, and I think the food was good. In the field, we had sea rations. Now these sea rations were back from World War II, so they were pretty old by the time we got them. But the main meal of the day was in cans, and the food was not spoiled. It doesn't go bad in 10 years. And it's still canned food will generally stay good over 10 years. So the canned food were good, but they had in there like a candy bar or something, and that was moldy. And they had in there, everybody got a pack of cigarettes back in the Second World War every day, and they were bad. And the sea rations weren't that good. The pork and beans were good. I remember the pork and beans, but the spaghetti and meat and the other things, I don't even remember what they were, but they weren't good.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual things that happened?
Not offhand.
Did you always have plenty of supplies?
What?
Plenty of supplies?
Plenty of supplies. We had enough supplies. One of the things that we, complained about is we seem to have equipment that was left, were the Army's leftovers. The radio equipment that we had, the telephone, were you know, the Army didn't use them anymore. Okay, so we just had, a lot of what we had seemed to be somebody else's cast-offs. And we did not appreciate that. Toward the end of my tour, we got what was then modern equipment. It was good to have the modern equipment because it all came in a nice little vehicle with it all there, all set up. We didn't have these heavy boxes like I talked to you about facsimile machines. Those weighed 600 pounds. And we were lugging these around and setting them up and whatever. So we came with a neat little vehicle with all of the equipment in it. That was kind of sweet, but that was just before we got out.
How do people entertain themselves?
We played blackjack a lot. Okay, we had an outdoor theater where the skaters could eat you up. So we'd have a movie every night so we could go to. We had a slop shoot, what they call a slop shoot, that's nothing more than a beer hall. We went to town, and so went to restaurants, we went to the beach. We pretty much in our free time did what anybody else would do on their free time.
Do you have any photographs?
I have a few, but not with me. I have a few, but there's nothing special about the photographs.
What did you think of your officers and fellow soldiers?
Pardon?
What did you think of your officers and fellow soldiers?
What I think of officers?
And your fellow soldiers?
What I think of them?
Yeah.
They were fine. Fine. The new officers were, they needed to be broken in, so to speak. And they were supposed to be like on the equipment we used, they were supposed to learn how to set that equipment up. Since they were in charge, of these operations, they were supposed to learn the operations they were in charge of. I had a bunch of young officers that were training, and they went through the steps sloppily of setting it up. But when it came time to the end, when you have to put everything back away, take it down, put it away, they just walk away. I said, no, that isn't right. And it was kind of, at one time, it was kind of resentful. We go to someplace like St. Thomas. The officers got to go up the hill to the country club, but the enlisted men couldn't. The officers had an indoor theater that they go to. We had an outdoor theater, summer and winter, no indoor theater. So, it seemed like sometimes they really didn't deserve the pampering that they were getting. We felt in a lot of ways sometimes that they were, so pampered that they probably weren't that good as Marines. Okay, and but as they gained experience, the more senior people, particularly those that had seen combat, were good. Okay, those that hadn't gotten there seemed to be uppity.
Did you or others ever pull pranks?
Did I what?
Pull pranks?
Pull pranks?
Did you ever prank anybody? Practical jokes?
Prank anybody?
Yeah.
Wait, what is that, prank?
Did you ever pull practical jokes like he put frogs in their van?
Oh, heavens no. Heavens no. No. We were honorable people. We do such things. But, okay, we weren't beyond, however, thievery. Okay? And one day, we're coming back from the beach and we're passing this field of watermelon. We say, by gosh and by golly, it'd be nice to have a couple of watermelon. So we went and picked a couple of watermelon. And we had to make sure we didn't get caught, so we used our Marine Corps training to stay invisible. We got ourselves a couple of watermelon, got home the next day, we decided to crack those watermelon open. They weren't ripe. So I guess we got pranked.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Pardon?
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yeah. I went home.
What did you do afterwards?
Well, afterwards I got home and said, now I'm going to have to do something to make a living. I'm going to have to do something to get me better educated. You remember I told you I was a high school dropout. Now, I don't know whether you'll get to the questions later or not, or what you'll ask me from this point on. So I'm going to, if you got the question, I'll be answering it, but I'll be answering it now instead of later. Okay. In the course of my time in the Marine Corps, I became, from being a high school dropout, because of the Marine Corps, I decided that I needed to be college educated. All right, and I actually started taking courses by correspondence while I was in the service. It was a nice thing that they provided. And at the end there, I had a person correcting him who had been in my company for most of my tour. Al Hemond was his name. But they give you these tests when you first go in. At that time they're called GCT tests, General Classification Test. And a high score in the company, a platoon that I was in, was 124. Mine was 121. And one other person was 121. Everybody else was below 120. And that's how I got why I was chosen to go into a technical thing. And remember, you know, some of these guys are college educated, you know. I said, So then I went to the schools, and did very well but then they sent me to a school called ABC School. Now, it's not the alphabet that we're going to. We're going to Atomic, Biological, and Chemical Warfare School. Okay, so it happened that in this class there was a Navy corpsman. Okay, this Navy corpsman says, you jarheads are a bunch of dumb, I won't say the word, and I'm going to beat you all. And and he says, I don't think so. So he and I had a competition, and I beat him out. He was number 2. And I says, and then I find out that 40,000 people had gone to that school, and only out of the 40,000, only one person had scored better than me. And in this class were people, captains, lieutenants, I think we had one major. What? I says, these people all got all this, I was so smart and got all this education. I must be pretty smart too. So I became college educated.
So what did you do with that college education? What was it in?
Well, before I got to the college education, like I said, I had to make a living. So I got a job as a attendant nurse at a mental hospital temporarily. And I started in days, and then I had to get some more education before I could go to college. And so I went to the Huntington School for Boys in Boston for take several courses and started working nights. And I went and got married, and I had to work full-time all through. And got myself an engineering degree. And I worked for Texas Instruments as technician while I was going to school, and then as a engineering aide afterwards, and then I went to work as loss prevention engineering, which was essentially my life's career.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
No, I did not.
Did you make any close friends while in the service?
Yeah, I had some friends while I was in the service.
Do you keep in contact with them?
They're all passed. I keep in contact with one of them's wife. Okay, she lives down where Tony lives.
Did you ever attend reunions?
No, I'm not sure we ever had any reunions.
And how did your service and experience affect your life?
I think I answered that question already when I says I went from high school dropout to somebody who was probably would have had a job in manual labor for for my working career, to a person that decided to go out and get an education to it. So I would say great effect.
And did your military experience ever influence how you thought about war or the military in general?
I'd say no. No. War is despicable, always has been, always will be, and it doesn't seem like war will ever go away, because there's too much greed and too much envy, and you see that even within families, okay, within towns. So people just can't get along as a whole.
Well, that's all the questions I have for you, so is there anything you'd like to add?
No, except as one thing a earlier person being interviewed said, I strongly believe that they should not have done away with the draft. I believe every person, everybody, should have been required, men and women both, should be required to spend at least a year in their life either in the military or doing some other public service job, whether it be a forest ranger or whether it be, working to help fix some of the infrastructure that there doesn't seem to be money to take care of. Okay, I just think that this is a person, and I think it should happen immediately after high school.
Well, it was good speaking with you, sir.
Okay?
Good meeting you.
Sure.